Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I'm glad to extend my welcome also to those who are attending today's hearing. And I have to take a point of departure from the opening statement of the ranking member, just articulated. Barriers are not some old technology. They aren't from some long ago thing from the Clinton administration. The Secure Fence Act was 2005, 2006. And the progress that was made was interrupted by the Obama administration first, and then, of course, all know that in 2019, President Trump declared a national emergency in recognition of the security and humanitarian crises at our southern border. But on the very first day in office, President Biden terminated President Trump's proclamation and halted construction of the border wall. While this purely political decision appeases a radical left open borders advocacy, it does nothing to enhance the security of Americans. The numbers do not lie. Since the 2018 election and the year following, border encounter numbers reached 20-year highs, broke records for encounters of aliens from countries other than Mexico, and more than doubled in every sector along the U.S.-Mexico border. Today, our crisis is at a boiling point. We just heard that the numbers have fallen. A boiling point with over 200,000 encounters in the month of May alone. Who's out of touch? Yet President Biden refuses to budge on restarting construction of a border barrier, wasting taxpayer dollars, encouraging illegal traffic at gaps at our border, and endangering the safety and security of Americans. A physical border barrier slows down those seeking to illegally cross the border and enhances Border Patrol agents' ability to apprehend those individuals. It's simply common sense, and any Border Patrol agent you find will tell you that. President Biden's failure to complete the border barrier system unquestionably hinders Border Patrol's efforts to control the border. As then Chief Patrol Agent for the Del Rio sector, now Chief of Border Patrol, Jason Owens, testified to this committee in a transcribed interview, a quote, physical barrier extends the amount of time that I and my team have to respond to and interdict, and it increases the certainty of arrest, close quote. Another sector chief logically explained that explained in his transcribed interview that the presence of a border wall leads individuals to cross at areas without a barrier, which allows Border Patrol to focus resources in response. Since President Biden halted border wall construction, Border Patrol recorded more than 1.5 million gotaways who crossed illegally into the United States without being apprehended. Not being apprehended because they weren't diverted to the places where they could be apprehended or deterred or slowed. We don't know who gotaways are. We don't know what they're doing and what they're bringing across the border. To speak of fentanyl, they catch it at the port of entry in the sink, but we don't even have any idea. It's the same small quantities that can poison hundreds of thousands or millions of Americans, and we don't even know. We don't know their intentions. But we do know that cartels traffic fentanyl across the southern border, and Americans are dying of fentanyl overdoses at historic levels. These are among the reasons Congress acted to enhance physical infrastructure along the southern border. For example, Section 3 of the 2006 Secure Fence Act requires, quote, at least 2 layers of reinforced fencing, installation of additional physical barriers, roads, lighting, cameras, and sensors, close quote. Since 2006, Congress appropriated funding explicitly to construct the barrier system on the southern border. In fact, just 1 month before President Biden halted border wall construction, Congress included almost $1.4 billion for the border barrier system in the Consolidated Appropriations Act for fiscal year 2021. It makes a mockery of the duty faithfully to execute the law. Notwithstanding legal requirements and congressional appropriations to build a barrier system, President Biden's Department of Homeland Security is instead spending tax dollars on environmental remediation projects. President Biden's irresponsible decision left stacks of unused construction materials exposed to the elements to rust away at project sites along the border. Reckless cost to the federal government, reckless waste of resources. Private citizens on the border found themselves left with the inconvenience, hazard, and expense of these materials remaining abandoned on their properties for now over 2 years. No resolution, just abandoned. That's the policy of the administration. We bought materials, we signed the contracts, but now we're getting nothing for it, just unprecedented levels of illegal immigration. The suspension and termination of contracts also placed contractors in an untenable position. Contractors made business plans and took on expenses to fulfill their contracts. They were then forced to wait on hold for months without any clear decision while the Biden administration decided whether to honor contractual obligations. And when that became something that even the Biden administration couldn't contend that they were doing any longer, they terminated contracts, and contractors now, 2 years later, are saddled with the need to attempt to at least recover some of their costs. This is madness. With the ongoing border crisis of historic proportions, we need to equip our Border Patrol agents with all tools possible to secure our border. Congress has spoken and passed laws, but the Biden administration has wasted hundreds of millions of American taxpayer dollars in canceling contracts that would finish the job. Instead of getting what Americans paid for, we're left with wall panels to bake in the desert and a wide open border. President Biden's unconscionable decision compromises national security. Thanks to all for joining this hearing. I look forward to the testimony from our witnesses. I yield back.
Thank you, Chairman Bishop. I now recognize